Right, morning, welcome all. Yeah, just as we were saying, you go away for 10 days, fall apart at the seams, you come back, expected to perform immediately straight off the bat. I don't know. I think this pressure is just way too much for me, but at least we've got the luminaries on this morning to discuss pieces of prose and high literature and other things there. And there it goes into the chat box. So, crisis, chaos, connect the dots. I think we're discussing the first line this morning, Ed. It was rise above the noise. So, and I've got some noise in the background there. So, signaled in by the hardy-dars flying through. Right, so Ed, I think it's over to you to kick off the morning.
Yeah, thank you. I thought I'd wear a cap this morning in sort of homage to the ode. I was absolutely blown away by that piece of writing. It just blew me away. Like most simple things, it's very complex, and that's why I thought it was worth doing it line by line. And I just loved the first line: rise, rise, rise. And the fact it's said 3 times, it's urging us, it's driving us on, and we all learn that the power of 3. And I thought the rise, rise, rise for me meant rise up from your slumbers, rise up in the morning and start a fresh new day, just rise up and get at it. And it also made me think about bread rising. It starts off like this sort of dull, pallid lump of stuff, and then it rises to become a lovely loaf with a sort of a golden crust, and then I thought about rise as in rise up, as in rebellion, rise up and take action, rise up and do something, rise up and make a difference. And then, the power of 3. Normally we talk, say say 3 key things, or say the 3 top things. But here Trevor's used the 3 to say exactly the same thing. And that gives it an amazing power, so that when we learn what we're rising up from, that from, the power's taken away from it. So we're told to rise above the noise. And what is that noise? What is noise? Noise is a distraction. Noise is lots of people trying to grab our attention, trying to remove our focus, trying to drag us down. And what are we told to do about this noise? Well, rise above it, to stand out. And for me, that wasn't what made it really, really powerful. And he'd also set himself a challenge in a way, because he's set the tone for the rest of the work. And he's given himself a problem, because he's given himself constraints, because he's got to follow the same pattern. And I think that's what we often forget, is that constraints really do allow for creativity. And it allows us to be really creative. And mother is necessity is the mother of invention, and that's what he's done here. By giving himself constraints, he'd allowed himself the freedom to invent stuff. And for me, just that first line was so powerful that I thought, well, it can't get any better. And it does, but I'm just going to leave it at that first line. I hope that made some sort of sense. I just really loved the whole thing, and yeah, I'm absolutely in awe of what Trevor's done here. I'm not in awe of Trevor. I'm in awe of what he's done.
Great, thanks, Ed. Yeah, I was wondering, are there those deep interpretations, of some shallow thoughts from Trevor there, So, no, but jokes aside, thanks very much, Ed. I think it was a really nice interpretation of that first line, and some deep thought that's gone into that as well. I don't know if you started at 2:30 this morning, but I think that would be really early for some of us. So I think, Trevor Cardy, let's get across to you next.
I must admit, I thought the first line was crisis, chaos, et al. But with us using rise, 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 you have to fall before you can rise. There has to be a nothing before you can rise. There have to be darkness before sunrise. So for me, I was thinking about how many times do you rise? And apparently the number is 3 times, because the great laureate said, rise, rise, rise. And then he followed that up with ... And that's the bit that I got a bit concerned with, because are dots dashes or are dots dots? And then you have to focus on those dots. And then I see I'm getting a 2-finger dot. So I need eyes, because what you should have, I'm just adding from a perspective of correctness, you can't go 3, 3, 3 and then 2. So you're missing a dot. There is a dot missing. But luckily, when I looked upon it, there it was a little lower down, which we'll get to on day 7, right after focus. So the dots and the dashes aren't adding up to the SOS Morse code that I was hoping to get out of this, but I did get rise, and I got up this morning. So I've started with rise, and I'm just going to settle into the rise today. And the noise, you can hear it. I don't know how to get rid of it. They're bashing the plaster off my walls here. They're going to repaint my unit, and so it's going to be noisy for a while, but I will rise every day anyway. Trevor, retype 1 extra dot in all your spaces for perfection.
Thanks, Trevor. Yeah, you'll have to try and rise above that noise of the bashing and breaking down. I've got weed eaters going in the background here this morning, so I'm going to have to try and rise above that noise as well. But I think there's a dot at the end of the line. Maybe it was just misplaced. So you've got to look and see where all the dots are lining up or not. But yeah, so see if we can join the dots. Jasper, can you join the dots for us?
No, I can't. Morning. I can't be as deep as Mr. TC there, that even count the dots. I'm a bit more of a just cast a quickly cast a vision and see where that takes me. But I'm happy we've got people there. Yeah, and I think it's good that one unpack it line by line, and it will be interesting to see how far it opens up dialogue amongst us. And so yeah, I think so rise for me would talk about get distance. So from the perspective of an eagle, I'm too close to the ground. I need to get distance, and the higher I can get, the more I'm away from the origin of the noise and the origin of whatever it is. And that get distance to me, from an eagle's perspective, would then also be to escape the gravity. And I think sometimes the number of people in the same situation talking about the same thing, and I'm just thinking of people, the only input they have in their lives is the daily news, which is already filtered by people behind the scenes to give them just a skewed opinion of the real truth in the world. And now you have these masses of people feeding this programmed information, and then when they meet each other, wherever they meet each other, they then regurgitate the news to each other, and trying to outdo each other in terms of how they remember the most gory detail of the worst part of the news. So that to me almost represent like a gravity force, or in Trevor's analogy of the river, a whirlpool that somehow sucks you in. And it's almost impossible not to be sucked in by the negative energy of people around you, unless you can somehow escape that gravity force. When I teach people in gig and the generational inheritance mindset, I use the same analogy of escape the gravity force. And I say, here we are programmed by the system, and we use the 12 most impressionable years of a child's life to teach him how to become an employee, not to become an employer. Then if they can't find jobs, then you have the government and all the other people making promises that they can't keep, and at the same time making laws that strip you of wealth while you're alive and finally strip you of wealth when you die. And then we have the financial industry, getting marketing messages out there as to how you are so stupid you can't handle your own money. Give it to us. We'll work with the money for you. And then you have the media who knows that you are you feel so inferior that you would swallow all the stuff they parade to you as here's a role model. And if you want to be like him, drink this, eat that, put this on, etc. So that's the gravity force that we are so programmed with, and we wake up in every day. So how do you escape the pull of gravity? Now, what the eagle does, the eagle knows that its initial work just to flap my wings a little bit, but when I reach a certain height, there's a flow of air that is unseen to the eye, and I call it find new energy. And that flow of wind there, I don't have to flap my wings, I just glide, and my angle of my wings let me glide higher and higher and higher. So the challenge for us is, what then is our source of new energy so that we can escape this gravity force, and that this pulling and the sucking factor that is just robbing you of your energy and your creativeness. Because the reason why you need to rise is above, so what is that thing, above the noise. So noise, like it said, is distracting, but as you can somehow, and I think, Ivan, you can probably relate to it the best, you just had a week and more of noise-free interruption in the bush, where you could just sit at one spot and observe nature and start getting the rhythm of nature. While your focus is elsewhere, I think a lot of things just get sorted out in your own life while you are just quiet. So so I think for me, great to say, get away from the gravity force and find out what it is that's currently sucking you in and pulling you back, and find your new source of energy. And that new source of energy in the practical world could well be join something like what we're doing this morning, get into wisdoms and just get your mind off whatever it is. And if we have more of these things, it becomes the new gravity force that instead of pulling you down, pulling you up, and find that new form of energy. But the purpose here is get away, escape, get distance, so that you can become quiet.
Great, thanks, Jasper. Yeah, some nice analogies there. Enjoyed that. So, right, Donovan, let's hear your thoughts.
Yes, thanks, Ivan. Morning, everyone. Again. Yeah, I'm starting my comment by raising a question. The question is, from where does one need to rise, or from whom, or from what situation, or from what depth, or from what level? So it's quite what can I call it? A fully loaded statement with a lot of questions and a lot of possibilities. And then on the construction side, sorry for bringing construction. The interesting thing is noise actually rises upwards. So if you want to escape the noise, you shouldn't rise upwards, because the noise will catch you. So I'm left with more questions than answers, I'm afraid. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Donovan. We'll have to talk to the poet laureate and see if he can solve that little conundrum for you later on. Right, Cecile, let's get across to you.
Okay, guys, yesterday I had one of these days from hell driving around in Johannesburg, traffic from one customer to another. That's why I'm actually glad that I'm getting out of this, because I'm setting up a new customer to move. So I haven't got much to say except for I'm rising to see the eagle's view of what's happening still in this last few weeks that I'm here in Joburg, and then trying to fly a little bit to the Eastern Cape and see what rise is bringing me there. So yeah, so that's all I can say, but it's very interesting listening to all of you.
Thanks, Cecile. Yeah, there's there's a lot of thought that this has obviously sparked, which is fantastic. And I think for me the elements have probably been covered, but I think Trevor Carty mentioned how many times you have to rise. I think one more time than you fall, Trevor. I think the three is simply a prod in the right direction for me. So it's you're always going to get knocked back by something or someone or some event at some point, and it might be a small step back, or it might be a huge step back. Some of us have had those life-changing moments, and others have had the wobbles, and you've got to go through all of those dips to be able to rise again and get back above that noise and that clutter. And I think that's really, for me, is to actually try and we've spoken about the getting above the noise. Donovan speaks about the noise following you, and I think it definitely does to a point. And you've got to learn how to escape that and get beyond that clutter. Jasper spoke about the news and people focusing on the news. Yeah, I very rarely read or watch any kind of news. I glance at headlines occasionally. A friend of mine used to say that there's no such thing as new news. The only thing that changes are the names and the times and the places. Everything else stays the same. So there doesn't seem a hell of a point in reading the news on a daily basis to me, because nothing keeps on changing as far as the media is concerned. So you've got to change things for yourself, and I think the way to do that is to try and get that clarity, to try and get that space, to try and get beyond the mundane, which is dragging you back down all the time. And unfortunately, that's the role of the media. That's the role of all kinds of media, whether it's social media or print media or simply the stuff that Hollywood churns out. I think all of it is actually designed to drag us down one way or another. And if you focus on those sort of things, you're continually getting pulled back into the sludge and the grime, and you can't hear anything but the noise. And so the one way to prevent that from happening is simply to guard what you're allowing into your minds, and just prevent that noise and that clutter from actually entering. So yeah, those are my thoughts. So I think I'll have to hand over to Trevor now to see how he feels about the interpretations of his first line. And Trevor Carty, I think the first line that you thought was actually the title, and not the first line. So the chaos. The Crisis Chaos Connect the Dots, I believe, is the title, which I actually forgot to put into the email yesterday. So I missed that one completely, but sometimes the noise and the clutter affects the way we put things out as well. So, and you may have noticed, those of you who saw the email, that the subject line was half missing as well. And that is simply as a result of the noise and the clutter that I was having to try and rise above yesterday. But it's the way it goes sometimes. So, Trevor, now over to you.
Absolutely fascinating, just listening to different people's interpretations of a couple of words. And yes, that title actually came afterwards, because what I realized is, for me, in writing this, it began, and remember I used that word quatrain. I had 4 lines. And those 4 lines were in different orders. And then I realized out of that quatrain to reshape the order just on and relate it back to what is going on in this COVID situation and lockdown situation, I had to readjust the order. And I was so interested to hear Ed talk about the precise order of this, because I'm quite amazed at the order. As you know, I'm not orderly at all. And for some reason, this came out almost with a rhythm, and it's almost exact. And so I'm interested in how Ed actually picked that up and how that order came out. But I think what stimulated this for me is reading an individual that I was connected to about 2 days ago, who is a consultant to NASA so the National Aeronautic Space Association or whatever they are in Orlando, and how he consults in to these highbrow individuals that have these projects going out now into the universe and exploring the universe, and he is a consultant to them. And it was interesting just to hear his views as to what is happening in this world today. And his view is that people don't understand just how much the world has changed. And it took me back to, in my mind, that what you have to do in times of crisis and chaos is you have to remove yourself totally from everything that can affect you. And for me, this was about a helicopter view, and just trying to remove myself higher and higher away. How would we then view what is happening with the crisis and chaos, and then what action do we take? So I think that almost encompasses how this thing started coming together. And it was quite interesting. Trevor Carter used the word mush. I don't know, something's going on in my DNA. So somehow I've become a poet laureate. So I had a moment to actually write another poem in my head, which I'll give you next week if you want to go into that one. Jasper used something about lifting up other people. That was in the next one, Dream Extremes. It was interesting, Donovan talking about the noise of a construction site. Well, when I'm thinking helicopter view, you know, sometimes when you're in a situation of noise, you actually don't hear the noise, which is quite interesting. So, you know, is that helicopter noise going up or construction noise? If it's really stimulating you, and for me, I listen to Donovan every day, and he's got these pithy little comments, and he loves what he's in. So that noise for him is totally inspiring in my view, that he loves to be around this construction noise, because that I think inspires and motivates Donovan, which is very different to where I was talking about going up and higher and getting an overall view of the landscape and then working out what it is that you want to do to strike. And who else? And Cecile, I think she's just removing herself completely from the Joburg noise, getting down to Plettenberg Bay, and then she'll take some time to read the poem and give us some feedback on it. So I'm excited for Cecile.
Great, thanks, Trevor. Yeah, I think some nice interpretations all around. So I think that leaves us simply to wrap up for today and say we're going to soar like an eagle tomorrow with a bit of luck. So put your thinking caps on, get some deep interpretations going again. There you go, Ed. Yeah, we'll have to all get our caps on for tomorrow. And other than that, have a fantastic day further and soar like an eagle. And we'll see you on the morrow. Go well.
And